Do folks have any questions about genealogy and like researching their family history? I posted those videos about Jalisco. Those books are really good. And if you guys are interested, I mean, if you're related to one person, you find out that you're related to like tons of people in that collection. There's 10 books, and the 10 books show like the most old school families of Jalisco. You know, back in the days, like Criollo families, like when people first came from Spain, they kind of intermarried with one another because, you know, they were in like a foreign land. Spaniards lived in their own communities. And so, you know, they ended up essentially functioning like one big family. Like folks would marry and then, you know, get married, and like then they'd marry like second cousins and stuff. So when you do your genealogy, you end up noticing that like you have like cousins marrying cousins. It was very common back then. I think it was true too in like Native American communities, only because people didn't move so much back then. It might have been just like a phenomenon of like, you know, olden times that people in these small villages just kind of married amongst each other. But it was certainly true for people of Spanish origin. And all of us are of Spanish origin, or most of us, right? Like 92% of Mexico has some level of Spanish ancestry. So, you know, this is a phenomenon among the first settlers. Because you have to remember, when Spanish people first moved to Mexico, they lived in like these little settlements. And, you know, it's like these small settlements of people amongst people that are either hostile or semi-hostile or sometimes not hostile at all. And so, you know, you're living in like these small settlements amongst a population that's very different than you. It got better over time for people because these people learned to coexist with each other. And Spaniards ended up marrying Native American people as well. And then, you know, they produced a mixed race population, and that's us today. So we are the product of these people. And so once they started marrying with natives, you know, mixed race people tended to live in Spanish communities. And that's how Spanish communities got bigger. People that were like if you were of mixed ancestry or of Spanish ancestry, you weren't allowed to live in a Native American town for longer than 3 days. They would expel you from the town. And so like if you were like a Native American woman or man and you got married to a Spaniard, and when I say Spaniard, I mean people born in Mexico. I'm not talking about people from Spain, because the vast majority of all Spaniards in Mexico were born in Mexico. So anyways, if you got married to a Spaniard, you would have to leave and go live in the Spanish community. And so the Spanish communities got bigger, like way bigger, because there was like a growing mixed race population. And that's where, if you guys have ever studied colonial history, you guys think of like a hierarchy of like peninsulares at the top, and then criollos, and then mestizos, and then, indigenous people, and then Africans. Like that hierarchy existed in Spanish towns. A lot of people don't understand that Native Americans had their own towns. So that dynamic of the hierarchy didn't really exist in their community. You could have been Native American and not interacted with people that weren't in your tribe your entire life. You know, there were people that lived in, you know, the majority of the population was Native. So, you know, so the people that experienced that kind of racial conflict were in Spanish urban centers. And you can imagine, Spanish people tended to live in urban areas like Guadalajara, San Luis Potosí, Puebla. You're interested in purchasing the set? Yeah, that's great. You really should. If you have last names, if you're curious, I have the index right here, and I can tell you specifically if your last name is in this book. And I can tell you, like, it is a good book. Like, anybody who buys this, they're gonna find value of some kind. Like my family's from Michoacan, and I found family in this book because I lived nearby. So it's very, very close. Maciel, I could tell you right now, I saw that name in the book. I'll double check, but I'm positive I saw that. I'm positive I saw Maciel in the book. Yep, it's in there. For sure it's in there. I'm working on books from Guerrero. We're working on getting everybody represented. We're doing as much as we can. Jimenez is in this book. But anyways, you can ask for this and then go through it and then look on your family tree, because I'm sure a lot of you have already done a lot of your genealogy. Look on your family tree and see how many last names from this you see on your family tree. Because I guarantee you, if you got one, you got multiple. Because these people, they all knew each other, they intermarried, and like, and there's tons of stuff on here. There's people on here that have like family crests, like real ones. There's just all kinds of stuff. You find out you're like a descendant of like conquistadors and like Spanish Empire, like government figures. Like it's an amazing book. And it's all fully cited, like fully cited, and it's published by the government, the state government of Jalisco. So it's like, it's in like the genealogy world and like my field of work, it's considered like a top source. And like, it's just amazing that there hasn't been enough work done like this in other states. There's so much documentation. Any state, like my wife's family's from Oaxaca, there's so much documentation from the colonial period. Like I found my wife's family back to the 1600s. And so there's just tons of stuff, and people just don't like, it's all there, guys. It's all there. And like, I hope more researchers have focused on like Michoacan. They focused on Jalisco. They focused on like some of the northern places and like Durango, Zacatecas. Like there's a lot of work that's been done there. Chihuahua. We need more people doing research on places like Guerrero, Chiapas, Oaxaca. Like we need people to do that research. And like I'm telling you, the documentation's there. It's just a matter of people doing the research. If you like, when you do this stuff in Spanish, because all this stuff is in Spanish, you see how much is available. Like there's just tons of stuff available. And that's why like I do these chats. I do everything in English because for Mexican Americans, we don't know that this stuff exists. Like, everybody says like, oh, like our history's been destroyed. It's gone. It's like, dude, we have 500 years of history. Like nobody else in the world has that. Nobody. You can talk to anybody from any country. No one knows more than their great grandparents. That's it. Like even like white Americans, they don't know their history. They might know like Ellis Island, like, oh, my Italian grandparents came from Ellis Island. They might know that. But very, very few people know their history before the 1800s. I could take any one of you on this chat if you're from Mexico, and I could find your ancestry back to the 1600s. Like probably anybody on this chat, easily I could find back to the 1600s, easily. Like, and that's like not even trying. And so like we're very lucky. We're very, very lucky, guys. You can't find shit about your family. Yeah, I mean it's tough. I mean, it's there. It's there. You just gotta like look in the right places. I can tell you Zacatecas was populated more like in the 1700s, especially 1600s, 1700s. As mining grew in those areas, more and more people started moving there. It's kind of like northern Mexico. Like that place was more and more settled like in the 1700s. Like before that, there was like less people there. You took a 23andMe and more confused than ever. Well, I could tell you, okay, you probably found Portuguese. Spain and Portugal used to be one country. So we end up finding out that we have Portuguese ancestry and Spanish ancestry. And then we end up finding out that sometimes we have African ancestry. Yeah, exactly. The spelling changes the names very quickly. Once you get like to the 1800s, you start noticing like the spelling changes. Your family's from Puebla, near the pyramids. So go on my page. If you're new to genealogy, make sure to go on my page. I have tons of tutorials. Remember, before the 1500s, there really weren't written records for most people in world history. So think about that. For most of written history in the common world, because writing has been around for a long time, right? Like since like ancient times. But it was mostly done by the elites. And so you have like royal bloodlines that have been recorded since like the 1300s, the 900s. Certain royal bloodlines have been recorded for a very long time. But for commoners like me and you, it's only been a big thing since like the very late 1400s, in the 1500s to now. So because of that, because of the way the Spanish system was set up, we have basically all of our family history from all of written history for like common people. All of our written history is available to us in one way or another. Maybe you can't get all of your family branches back to the 1400s, but you'll get something. Like if you dig long enough, like you'll get something. I got my family back to the 1400s, and I'm still finding new stuff. You know, my last name, I got back to the 1600s, and then it stops because my last name is the name of a town. And when the guy came from Spain to Mexico, he just took his town as his last name.